KD in Houston. The rise, the chaos, and the collapse. There's a stat line sitting in the 2025-26 NBA record books that makes almost no sense the first time you read it. 26 points per game, 52% from the field, 41% from three, 64.1% true shooting. One of the most efficient, dominant individual scoring seasons posted by any player this decade, and the team that player carried. Eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, by a squad missing two of its best players. That is not a hypothetical, that is not an exaggeration. That is exactly what happened to the Houston Rockets in the spring of 2026. And if you want to understand how a franchise acquisition that looked like a masterstroke turned into one of the most talked about collapses in recent NBA memory, then you need to go back to where it all started, the trade. When the Houston Rockets pulled the trigger on the Kevin Durant deal, the front office believed they had solved the equation. Jalen Green, for all his athleticism and upside, had not yet proven himself as a reliable closer in high-stakes situations. The Rockets needed a certified, battle-tested alpha, someone who had been in elimination games, finals series, and pressure moments for the better part of 2 decades. Kevin Durant was exactly that, and on paper, the price looked reasonable. Green, who was 24 years old at the time of the deal, went to Phoenix along with Dillon Brooks, 5 second-round picks and 1 first-round pick from a draft class that scouts rated as weak at the top. 2 camps formed in the fan base almost immediately. The first argued it was a bargain, a proven all-NBA scorer for a package that did not gut the core. The second argued it was rushed, a desperate all-or-nothing swing given Durant's age. Both arguments had merit. But the vision the front office was selling was clear. Durant's scoring layered on top of Ime Udoka's defensive system plus Houston's young core of Alperen Sengun, Amen Thompson, and Jabari Smith Jr. was supposed to produce something that could genuinely compete for a championship. And if you are a Hoop Action TV subscriber, you already know we do not do surface-level takes here. We are closing in on 1,500 subscribers, and every single one of you came here for real NBA breakdowns, not recycled hot takes. If you are watching this and you have not subscribed yet, now's the time. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, leave a comment, and share this video with anyone who follows the NBA seriously. We are building something here, and this story, KD in Houston, is exactly the kind of deep dive that this channel exists to tell. Now back to it. The 2025-26 regular season started with Durant doing exactly what Kevin Durant does. The numbers were not just good, they were historically efficient. 26 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 52% from the field, 41.3% from three, 87.4% from the free throw line. He finished 6th in the entire league in 30-point games. Shams Charania described him at one point as one of the most unstoppable scorers in NBA history, and there was no reason to argue. Houston as a team matched their previous year's 52 wins, and they did it without Fred VanVleet for the entire season and without Steven Adams for large stretches. Those 2 absences are not minor footnotes. They are central to understanding everything that went wrong. VanVleet tore his ACL early in the season and was ruled out for the year. Adams missed over 50 games due to injury. For context on why that matters beyond just the box score, both of those players served as the emotional anchors of the Houston locker room. VanVleet was the vocal veteran who had won a championship with Toronto, who commanded respect in the locker room, and who had the credibility to hold young players accountable. Adams brought a physical toughness and a steady presence that set the tone for how the Rockets competed every night. When both of them went down, that left a leadership void, and it left Kevin Durant filling a role that historically he has never excelled at. ESPN's Tim McMahon and Ramona Shelburne reported that Durant's moodiness wore on younger players throughout the season. Udoka himself acknowledged that Durant was being asked to do more than he was used to, playing every position at times, functioning as the primary playmaker in stretches, and serving as the de facto locker room voice. The tactical consequence of that was significant. Too many possessions started and ended with Durant, making it straightforward for opposing defenses to load up, double team, and limit the Rockets' offensive flow. Durant has always thrived as a weapon, not as the one dictating structure. At Golden State, he had Stephen Curry drawing attention and creating space, Draymond Green running the offense with his voice and his playmaking, and Klay Thompson spacing the floor. In Houston in 2026, none of those structural pieces existed. The young core was talented but unformed, and the cracks in the foundation were deepening by the week. Then came All-Star Weekend 2026, and the story shifted from a quiet internal struggle to an outright public fracture. A non-verified Twitter account surfaced during All-Star Weekend containing posts that were disparaging toward 2 of Durant's own teammates, Jabari Smith Jr. and Alperen Sengun. Durant, when asked about the account publicly, dismissed it as Twitter nonsense, but he never denied that the account was connected to him. That distinction matters. The Rockets internally operated under the belief that Durant was associated with the account, and that assumption shaped everything that followed. A team meeting was called. It was described by those with knowledge of the situation as more of a team discussion than a meeting, which is a way of saying the tension was addressed but not resolved. This was not the first time Durant had faced questions like this. He was publicly caught in 2017 tweeting in the third person from what was clearly his own account to defend his decision to leave Oklahoma City for the Golden State Warriors. The pattern was not new. The behavior was documented. But the difference in 2026 was that the targets were his own teammates, players he was supposed to be leading, mentoring, and competing alongside. Sengun, Amen Thompson, and Jabari Smith Jr. now had to look at the player the franchise had built around with a completely different set of eyes. That kind of trust, once damaged in a locker room, does not simply return. When the playoffs arrived, the Rockets were matched up in the first round against the Los Angeles Lakers, a matchup that on paper looked like a gift. The Lakers were without Luka Doncic and without Austin Reeves, two of their most important players. Houston was healthy, experienced in their system, playing in front of a charged home crowd and backed by a star averaging 26 a night. The series in theory should not have been close. It was not even competitive, just not in the direction anyone expected. Kevin Durant suffered a right knee contusion at practice before Game 1 and did not play. He returned for Game 2, gutted through significant discomfort, and then suffered a left ankle sprain and a bone bruise that ended his postseason. Over the entire series, Durant played in exactly one game. One without him, the formula that the Rockets had built their entire season around simply did not exist anymore. Sengun, Amen Thompson, and Jabari were asked to carry a playoff series against a Lakers squad with LeBron James operating as its engine. Durant himself acknowledged what LeBron was doing. He described James as going after the head of the snake, and LeBron, 41 years old, delivered. He outdueled the entire Houston roster across 6 games and sent the Rockets home in a series they were heavily favored to win. Ime Udoka was outcoached in that series by J.J. Redick, the former podcast host turned head coach in his second year on the sideline. The internet did not let that storyline go quietly. Houston fell in 6 games, first round, out. The aftermath unfolded fast. Trade rumors around Durant ignited almost immediately, with 5 potential landing spots being discussed across league circles. Questions about Udoka's job security followed. Durant had been present during the coaching carousel in Phoenix, where both Frank Vogel and Mike Budenholzer were fired while KD was on the roster. Houston publicly stated they were keeping Udoka. The contrast was notable. The Phoenix Suns, the team Durant left behind, had finally moved on, hired Jordan Ott, and had begun rebuilding with a clear long-term vision. The Rockets, meanwhile, were staring at a much messier picture. The core dilemma was not complicated to articulate, but it had no clean answer. Kevin Durant is 37 years old. Every year that passes without a deep playoff run is a year that does not come back. Running the same formula back, even with VanVleet and Adams healthy, carries real risk. The locker room damage from the All-Star Weekend situation had not been publicly repaired. The young core's development had been shaped, for better and worse, by the experience of playing alongside a superstar whose leadership style did not match what they needed. Whether VanVleet's return changes the internal dynamic in a meaningful way is a question that cannot be answered until it is tested. Here's what the complete arc of Kevin Durant's career actually tells you, stripped of narrative and sentiment. At Oklahoma City, he was a generational talent surrounded by a strong supporting cast and a vocal locker room in Russell Westbrook. It worked until it didn't, and the relationship between the two ended in one of the most discussed departures in NBA history. At Golden State, the structure was already in place. Curry set the tone, Draymond ran the offense, Klay spaced the floor. Durant was the weapon, the closer, the mismatch no one could solve, and the Warriors won 2 championships with him. He was never asked to lead. He was asked to score, and he was the best scorer alive. At Brooklyn, the vision collapsed under injuries, personality conflicts, and a roster that never functioned as a cohesive unit. At Phoenix, the coaching staff was changed twice while he was on the roster, and the team never found an identity that worked around his skill set. And now in Houston, the injuries, the burner account situation, and the first-round exit have left the franchise with more questions than they started with. The throughline is not subtle. Durant has never been the leader, he has always been the weapon. Every situation where his tenure ended in drama or underachievement shared a common structural problem. The surrounding pieces did not provide what the Golden State years provided: vocal leadership, systemic identity, and a roster built to carry the load he cannot carry alone. The burner accounts are not isolated incidents. The mood swings reported by ESPN are not isolated incidents. They are a consistent pattern across multiple franchises, multiple coaching staffs, and multiple supporting casts. The question that every front office considering a move for Durant has to answer is not whether he can still play. He averaged 26 points on 64% true shooting at age 36. The question is whether any team at this stage can construct the exact kind of ecosystem that allows him to function as the weapon without forcing him to be the leader. And in 2026, that question does not yet have a clear answer. What the Rockets built in Houston was missing the structural foundation that made Durant great. Without VanVleet from day one, without Adams for most of the season, and with a young core still developing its own identity, they effectively handed Durant a situation where he was the weapon and the leader and the system all at once. That is not a role he has ever thrived in. The numbers proved he still had the individual skill to be elite. The results proved that individual skill without the right structure is not enough. 26 points a game, 52% from the field, 41% from 3, 1 game played in the playoffs, eliminated in the first round. That is the complete KD in Houston story, and it raises a question worth sitting with. Is this Kevin Durant's failure, or did Houston hand him a situation that was structurally designed to fall apart? That is the debate. And the answer honestly depends on what you think a star player owes his franchise beyond the stat sheet. Drop your take in the comments. Should the Rockets trade KD this summer? If yes, where does he go, and what does that team need to have in place for it to actually work? This is exactly the kind of conversation this channel exists for, so bring your argument, bring your receipts, and let us have it. Share this video with anyone in your circle who watches the NBA seriously. This story is bigger than one team in one season, and it deserves a real discussion. If you enjoy real NBA breakdowns like this, you'll like what's coming next.